Beer. How's the beer here? It's all right? Is it cold? And beer is beer. That's what we'll leave it at that. But that's good stuff, too. 10 seconds. Well, good afternoon, you guys. Give yourselves a round of applause for putting up with this wonderful heat. Only wonderful foodies and people just really into garlic could really just sit out there in these bleachers, a little bit of shade, and enjoy this next demonstration. Right in front of me, this good-looking young man. Yes, Jason, I'm talking about you.
Uh-oh.
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 Ladies and gentlemen, give it up. Round of applause for Jason Gronlund and his cooking demonstration.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday afternoon here at the Gilroy Garlic Festival. Glad you all came out here. It's great to support your community through this. I'm sure you've heard it before, but I'm going to say it again. It's great. All the profits go back to your community. So, and the volunteers that are here are volunteering for their organization. So I think it's great what the community does, what this festival does, and you guys out here supporting it. So we're going to jump right into this. What I'm actually going to do is a demonstration using Australian lamb with some Indian flavors. I'm actually heading down to Australia in about 10 days as a delegate of chefs going down to learn more about the production of lamb and beef in Australia. So we're going to look at some different stuff here. We're actually going to do a tandoor style lamb with a Israeli couscous salad and a kiwi salsa. And the kiwi is actually zespri. It's a New Zealand kiwi, so we're really sort of taking some ingredients from down under. So hopefully you'll not only get to learn some cool recipes with great flavors, but also going to try and give you some cooking tips as well. Besides just the recipe. Yeah, we do have some cookbooks up here. If you guys want to come on up, the Australian Lamb and Beef Council is provided for us. So the first thing I want to do is talk about our lamb. The lamb is Australian lamb, and the difference between Australian and domestic U.S. lamb is at the age in which they process it. It's a little bit smaller rack than domestic, so you don't have that strong flavor that you do on U.S. lamb. So it's much sweeter, doesn't have that strong mutton flavor. So all I'm doing right now is I'm taking the lamb and I'm cutting it down into what they would call lollipops or chops, which makes it great for grilling out for a share kind of appetizer and or an entree as well. So and we're going to put it in this little machine here, which I'm going to explain as soon as I get the lamb done. So we're going to take that machine. It'll take about 5 pounds of meat to fill it up. So then we're going to make what's called a tandoor marinade. Now the tandoor is a cooking equipment in India, and it's basically, has everybody here had naan bread before? Naan bread, everybody? It's actually a ceramic oven that they actually throw the bread right onto the side of the oven to cook it, and they peel it off. So it's sort of interesting to watch naan being made. So we're not actually going to have a tandoor here, but we're going to give it the flavors of a tandoor by giving it the marinade with the yogurt. So what I want to show here is these are called French racks of lamb. So if you can see the difference is, see all these little bones? They're all clean, and what that does is it makes a very nice presentation. On this lamb, it's not clean. So what you do, let me find my paring knife. Not sure where it went. So anyway, oh, there it is. So you take your paring knife, and what you do is you scrape this off of here. And what that does, it just allows for a very pretty presentation you'll see when we grill. So I left some with the racks not Frenched and some with. So you see the bones are really clean on there, and especially these ones that I did earlier. You can see they're starting to turn white. So what happens is when you grill them, you'll get a really pretty white color on them. It's a really nice presentation when you're doing, let me get to a more appropriate knife. Now that's a knife. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these down into chops. So what we're going to do is traditionally you want to let these marinate for about 24 hours so the flavor gets in. This little machine I have in front of me, it's called a vacuum tumbler. So how many people has gone to the grocery store and purchased those meats that are pre-marinated in the package, pork tenderloins, that kind of stuff? So where they're made, they have a big thing like that, except it looks like a huge cement mixer. And they put the meat in there, they pour a few hundred gallons of marinade in there. they pull a vacuum on it. And what that vacuum does is separates the muscle tissue and open it up so it can set the marinade much quicker. So we're going to make our marinade, our tandoor style marinade, and use this machine to impart the flavor much quicker. So you don't want to go much above that line there. So we're going to leave that. We're going to go ahead and clear our lamb board out of the way. Let me wipe my hands so we got clean hands. We're not going to cross-contaminate here because everything else from this point forward is vegetables, no more protein. So the last thing I want to do is, if I was cooking for somebody, you just want to make sure your hands are clean. So here's our meat. So to make our tandoor marinade is Indian. Yogurt is a huge component of the Indian cuisine and diet. It's like a Greek yogurt, very thick. And the one thing that yogurt contains is a lot of acid. So it really helps well in marinades. Marinades compose really of two main ingredients, your acid and your flavor. The acid breaks down the meat, denatures the protein to make it more tender, drive the flavor in. Then obviously your flavor components. A lot of marinades you see them put oil on. Oil is really not a necessity in today's marinades. The reason they had oil originally in marinades, it sat across the top, and because refrigerators weren't so cold, no oxygen could get into the marinade, so you could leave it sitting long. You didn't have to worry about it spoiling, because the reason food spoils is because of oxygen. If you could take a piece of meat, cut it really quickly, and get it into oil, it would really last a long time, because meat spoils because of oxygen. The oxygen blooms the pathogens and stuff on it, which starts breaking down and denaturing the protein. So we're going to take the yogurt, we're going to put it into our blender. And then that's our sort of our base. In it we have ginger, which I'm going to show you a little secret, but just want to get this going. We have onions. We have in here now, in this we have smoked paprika, turmeric. Turmeric is going to, you'll see it bloom out, it'll give a nice yellow color. Garam masala, which is a seasoning indigenous to India, some curry. It's got a really great flavor. There's a little bit of cinnamon, nutmeg in as well. The recipe is in your cookbook. And of course, the key ingredient, garlic. Garlic, a very huge ingredient in India as well. We're going to put that in there. Now some lemon juice. It's also another acidic driver and a bright note in there. So you always want to try, whenever possible, is to use fresh ingredients. So squeezing in fresh lemon juice is going to be a huge difference in your product when you make it. It makes the flavor really pop out for it. And so we're going to put about, it's going to wind up to be about a quarter cup. Each one of these gives you about maybe a half ounce or so, so I'm going to give one more just to be on the safe side. Oops, and spray a little bit. They get a little on the camera there? Okay, so we've got our lemon juice in, we have that. We actually want to put a little heat in there as well, so we're going to put a little of this jalapeno in there. Another ingredient indigenous to the region is our cilantro. Where did that go? I know it's up here. Is it right in front of me somewhere? Anyways, where's our cilantro and mint? Well, anyway, cilantro and mint is supposed to be in here, but we're going to go ahead and proceed forward without it. Did it get taken away? Yeah, I think I got cleaned up with the last demo. All right, so we're just going to go ahead forward without the cilantro on it in the top to our blender. Wow, we just sort of missing everything up here right now. Oh, here we go. Okay, so here's that. So let's get our marinade going. So you want to liquefy this to get everything ground up so it blends into when we start tumbling it. So you'll see now it's starting to bloom out yellow, and that's from the turmeric. That's going to add a nice color to that. Oh, here we go. So we can actually stop this for a second. And one thing too with cilantro, a lot of people pick cilantro when you're going to use it in a dish like this. We're going to go ahead and just chop the whole thing. You can use the stems, everything. And since it's going to go in the blender, just going to go ahead and put that right in there like that. So there's our cilantro. And it's not in the recipe, but I'm going to add a little bit of mint to it as well. Mint, another ingredient, indigenous. There's actually a chutney that you can put on afterwards that has a little mint. So we're going to add a little mint to this recipe. And Go ahead and put it on there. Again, we're going to liquefy it. Have our lamb ready. Going ahead and add our salt right into here so it tumbles around and gets mixed in with the meat as it's cooking. As it's marinating. So everybody see, can you get a close-up of that? See how pretty yellow color that is? Is it up there? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and pour this right into the machine here. And again, this is called a vacuum marinator. They have ones on the internet and stuff you can buy. So what we're going to do is you put this lid on very tightly. And what this machine is now going to do is you're going to plug it into the top, and you're going to hear it. It's going to start, you'll hear a pump kick in. So what's happening right now as we're talking, this machine is pulling a vacuum on the cylinder. As it pulls a vacuum on the cylinder, it's actually separating the meat fiber, so it's pulling it apart. A lot of times when you put a piece of protein to marinate, it sits there tight, so the marinade can't get in. Even after 24 hours of marination, marination only goes in about 1/8 of an inch into the product, where this will get in a little bit deeper. We've actually done some tests on it where it picks up about 15% more marinade than if you were to let it sit overnight. And obviously it's much quicker since you don't have to wait overnight. You can come home and say, gee, I really love to have some tandoor lamb tonight, but I don't have 24 hours, or that's for any marinade period. This way you don't have to really wait for it, because now it's going to be done and ready to go. So once we actually marinate it, we're going to go ahead and grill it. So traditionally, if it was a tandoor, it'd be done in a tandoor oven. Has anybody seen a tandoor, cooked with a tandoor before? If you really see a tandoor, in your mind, it should not work. It should not work, because what happens is the fire's at the bottom. You put the food on a skewer and stick it in there. You think, okay, the food really close to the fire is going to burn where the top is not. The way that it's a conical sort of pear shape, what happens is the heat comes around, causes a convection, comes up the sides of the oven, back down the center again. So it actually, from top to bottom, cooks the food incredibly even. And if you get a good one that's from actually India, they use a clay from a certain region, and when it fires up, it actually has this very floral smell to it. It's really unique and really imparts a very unique flavor to the food. And I don't know if you can get up here with the camera, you can actually see the vacuum being pulled. The marinade was actually bubbling in there from where it was pulling it up. So what we knew is we closed it off, we pull this out just to ensure that we don't make a big mess. You check the lid is on secure. Now what it does, turn sideways, and we're going to let it marinate for about 10 minutes. Now this will go into tumbling. So what's happening now, as it tumbles, it's forcing the marinade in there, it's tenderizing it, and so again, in about 10 minutes, it'll be like you let it soak overnight in a marinade. So while that's doing that, we're going to go on to our next, which is our couscous salad. Does everybody know how many types of couscous there are? There are 2. Most people know the Moroccan couscous, the really tiny one. This one is called an Israeli couscous. Can we get a shot of that? Some people call it spider egg pasta, some call it big ball couscous, whatever it is, but there's 2 kinds, Israeli and Moroccan. This is an Israeli couscous. I like it for salads because it sort of adds a nice texture to the salad. So we're going to go ahead and put some couscous in there. And again, for the summer, this is also a really nice dish to have because it's not hot. It's just sort of a tempered salad that you serve with it. You don't want to serve it cold, you want to serve it hot, just sort of room temperature. And so again, in the spirit of Middle Eastern flavor, we're going to use dried fruits. A lot of dried raisins, dates, and things in Indian cooking because it's a great way to preserve food. Food preservation for a long time is done by different ways. Drying, fermentation, smoking even. So is everybody familiar with the chipotle pepper? By raising hands. Obviously everybody's been to Chipotle Grill, correct? So the chipotle pepper was actually a happy accident. It was never an intended flavor to have a smoked pepper. What happened was, as everybody knows, it's just a jalapeno. Yes, no? So the chipotle is a red jalapeno. So what happens is it goes green, yellow to red. So the Aztecs, what would happen was in the fall when they'd go to dry these in the normal sun-dried, like sun-dried tomatoes and stuff, the skin was so thick on the outside they would rot before they could preserve them. So they tried some different ways to preserve them. They couldn't really figure it out and said, let's smoke them. So the smoke and dried them very well, but the byproduct was the smoky flavor. So it was never said, hey, this thing would take great smoked. It was only by process of trying to figure out how to preserve the pepper that they realized that smoking was going to be a byproduct of that. So it was sort of a happy accident. But dried fruits in Middle East and India cooking, very good because of the arid temperatures and stuff. Here we have some dates that we're going to put in there as well. Again, just to add some nice texture, color. What I have here is 2 different kinds of nuts, and it's always great too if you can add and toast them. So what I've done is toasted pistachios and almonds. It gives a great earthy flavor to the salad, a great crunch. We're going to go ahead and add those in there. And again, we want to sort of keep this simple. It's not meant to be a heavy salad or anything. It's meant, again, as a light salad for the side that we're doing. I'm going to place this off to the side over here. And then what I want to do is also now add some acid to it. Again, so to break those flavor lines and add some additional flavor. I'm going to put the lemon in there. Again, very simple. We're going to chop in some cilantro to it as well, and mint to give it some flavor. And this salad is sort of whatever you want to add to, whatever you use your favorite flavors. If you don't like the raisins and you like craisins, by all means add craisins to it. Cilantro. Again, you know, the green herbs that are sort of indigenous around the world are cilantro, basil. If you think about the amount of cuisines that those 2 green herbs get into, think about it. Italian has basil, Asian has basil, Latin America has basil. They all have cilantro. Well, Italian doesn't have as much cilantro. But you see them really around the world in global cuisine. So it's some stuff that's really cross-utilized in other cuisines around the world. And we have melting pots of cuisines here in the U.S. that really are reflective of our global cuisine. So I spent 11 years as executive chef for Tabasco, traveled the world with them. I cooked pretty much on every continent in the world. And you see a lot of things there. So working a lot in southern Louisiana. Everybody familiar with jambalaya? By raise of hands. Jambalaya is actually an offshoot of paella. So New Iberia, which is in southern Louisiana, New Spain, the Spaniards brought the paella in. Then you had the French Canadians come down with the charcuterie and dark roux and stuff. The 2 sort of intersected in the middle. Hence you wind up with the jambalaya. The spice and stuff comes from the Caribbean overtones. So again, so here's some dishes that are from around the world that have sort of been here in America, and by settlements of people from different areas have resulted in some really great global flavors. So now for some color, again, texture, we're going to add in some yellow pepper. We're going to add in some green pepper. Going to add in some red pepper. We're going to add in some red onion. And so again, we're going to toss this up. Look how pretty the salad is. Really light. Again, easy to do. Make sure the figs sometimes or dates have once you've chopped them, stick together a little bit. We want to add some salt to it to get those flavors to spring out. And last thing I'm going to do to it is to add some great California olive oil. And that's going to add a nice rich flavor using a finishing olive oil versus using one that doesn't have a lot of flavor. I know the guys were up here earlier giving a lesson on olive oil. Don't know if you're here for that. So now we have this great salad that we're going to serve aside. Isn't that beautiful? Simple, easy. It's a great summer salad. You have this nice and warm on the side. So again, it didn't take very long. You have the pasta cooled off. Something you can share with the family, friends that are coming over. And again, it's simple ingredients, but it just adds a really nice flair. This would go great with a Chardonnay or a great sparkling Riesling or something like that, sparkling ice wine. Anything like that, those sweet wines and those big dried fruit flavors go really well together. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a kiwi salsa, keeping in mind of our Australian lamb that we're using. So this is a zespri kiwi from New Zealand, here from about November to October. Great kiwi available here. They do have a gold one as well. So one of the things, a lot of people, they try to use a paring knife to peel a kiwi. So I'm going to show you the exact way to peel a kiwi. If we can get our camera guy over here so you can see it on the screen.
Jason, I'm going to move this.
Hey, go ahead and move that. They can see you, you know. So we're gonna do, so there's the kiwi. So I'm gonna move that to the side, and we're gonna do, now see our kiwi here? So you guys, we're gonna take both sides off of the kiwi. 1, 2, can you see it? Okay, so there's the kiwi. So now, what I'm gonna do is, watch this, you take and put a spoon right under the skin of it. Watch, just spin it around. A lot of people try to peel it with a paring knife, and look at that. So there is our peeled kiwi. How much easier is that than trying to wrestle it? You don't wind up losing it all. And two, if you're going to, so I've already got it diced up. If you're going to use it where you're decorating something, like you see those pretty cakes and stuff, and all this does is, let's say you want to take a cake and have some fun with it in the summer, just take cake, put like a nice filling, like a vanilla filling or something in it. You can take these beautiful kiwi, and like I said, Zespri does a golden one. It's gorgeous. So if you did green golden, you lay this on top of your cake, then you melt apple jelly down. Apple jelly is very clear. Melt it down just to the point it's melted. Don't get it hot. And then you pour it over the top of the cake. It solidifies on the fruit, so it protects the fruit from turning color. You've got a great, easy summer cake that's full of pudding. You can put some liqueur in it or something, and then you garnish it with the Zespri kiwi. Awesome stuff. So we're going to go ahead and set these over here out of our way. And so now to do, salsas or sort of however you want to do it, we're actually using an heirloom sort of red tomato. Another thing I want to show you, because this is a great contrast in color. So everybody's saying seeding tomatoes, cameraman. So you want to do the easiest way to seed a tomato. Come on up here, get you up close. So what you want to do is take your tomato, cut it in half this way. Don't cut it scar to stem. Cut it side to side. Actually, it was funny. Was everybody here for the retail cook-off today? Anybody raise a hand? One of the contestants wrote they were cutting the whole clove of garlic in half, and they said cut it across the equator line. So that's a pretty smart. So you're not going North Pole to South Pole. You're cutting it across the equator. I just thought it was a neat way to describe it. So you want to cut it in half. What it is, you see the centers of the tomato. So you want to do is just sort of gently squeeze it. Don't squeeze living daylights out of it. It didn't do anything to you. It didn't hurt the ozone, or it didn't leave a carbon footprint that's bad. I mean, you just take and sort of, now I'm making a mess by doing it this way, but look how easy the seeds come out. So a lot of people are squeezing, they're getting in with spoons, they're doing all this laborious stuff to get the seeds out of a tomato. And so again, all you do is just a little, and it's more of a snap of the hand. Don't squeeze it that hard, and look how nice the seeds come out of that. So next time you have to seed a bunch of tomatoes, you're not wrestling with them. What'd you spend 3 hours doing? I was peeling maters. So now those are done. Now another thing I want to show you too, since I have the spoon in hand and we have the ginger, our marinade is done. I'm going to give it another 5 minutes since I'm still running my cake hole. Oh yeah, thank you, my tea. So let's do a ginger. How many people use a peeler or a paring knife to peel ginger? Bunch of people. So come on, one more shot. So the best thing to do with ginger is with a spoon. So because you want to get all the ginger, so you take your spoon and you just drag it on the ginger. And what it does is it gives you the full yield. You don't lose all those pieces and stuff like that just by getting in there. And so we're going to take and get over here, like this nook that you normally lose all that ginger. Just take the tip of the spoon and just keep dragging it in there. And you wind up getting a full yield on your ginger instead of throwing a lot of it away. Again, a great, simple, easy cooking tip. Again, you don't lose a bunch of the ginger. And then one more from the world of Jason cooking tips. People, I've seen, camera guy, wrestle with peppers. Peppers seem to be one of these things that everybody cuts the sides of and do all these crazy things. So the best way to do a pepper where you're going to get the most yield out of it is first we're going to cut the crown off just below the scar. The scar would be right here like this. It popped off. It sort of has the scar underneath here. But anyways, so you cut it off just there. So there's our usable pepper there. And we're going to cut the base off right about there. Again, now all usable pepper. Turn it sideways. See these, they call the ribs of the pepper? And you can do this with any pepper. You run your knife down between the ribs. Turn on its side. Go this way. Now keep rolling it out, rolling it out, rolling it out, rolling it out. This is our garbage, and we have one big flat piece of pepper now we can produce into anything. We can grill this whole thing and put it onto something. We can then also, too, if you're going to cut it into julienne, always cut with the inside out because the skin sometimes can get a little rubbery, so it's a little harder to cut. So if you put your... Now, a lot of people talk about, well, how do chefs cut so fast? You see what I'm doing is I have the knife against my fingers. My fingers are bent back, and these are curled under, so I don't cut myself. But because I have it against my fingers, I always know where the knife is. So I can just keep cutting. So now we have our julienne pepper. Now if we want to take our pepper and turn it sideways. And now we have our diced pepper. All right? So again, all these different ways that we can take one pepper, go from strips to julienne to dice very simply without losing a lot of the production or a lot of the product on the pepper as well. So hopefully some nice easy tips for you to take away that you can use at home and say, hey, I learned this at the Garlic Festival. Who was it? Some babbling guy on stage taught it to me. But so anyways, get that cleaned up out of the way. Get back to our salsa. So we have our zespri kiwi in there from New Zealand. We have our Australian lamb going. So again, to add some flavor to this, we have some jalapeno, a little bit of heat in it, some onion we're going to add for some color, some peppers. And this again is just sort of to add some background notes to it. You can add a lot more jalapeno if you want, which we can spice this one up a little bit. And again, our garlic flavor is all coming in on the tandoor. We've got a bunch of garlic in there that the garlic really blooms out when it does this. So we're going to go ahead and chop that up a little bit more, add a little bit more spice into our salsa. Because really a salsa is anything. Like everybody thinks a mole is a chili sauce that has chocolate in it, which is about farthest from the truth. The mole is just a term for a sauce. Guacamole is a mole. So there's a lot of versions of mole, just like there are a lot of versions of salsas and chutneys, and so it's sort of an interpretation of what you want to put into it. You know, there's sort of a loose definition of what they are, but look how pretty this is. Again, this is using the zespri kiwi, tricolor pepper, salt, jalapeno. This is good to let it sit for about 20 minutes or so to let the jalapeno sort of bloom in there a little bit. You really don't need cilantro in this because you've got a lot of other ancillary flavors going on. So now we have two things. We have our kiwi salsa, our couscous salad that we made. And again, this demo is supposed to be about an hour. So we're sort of going right through this. So the only thing that I really haven't done in front of you so far is cook the couscous. And couscous cooks really in about 5 minutes. So we're talking about a dinner here. Well, obviously, this changes it a little bit, but you can still find these online. So we're going to go ahead and take this off, and we're going to do is shut it down. So what you want to do is you'll see if you can hear this. So that shows you the vacuum just went back down in it again. And pop this lid off here. Sometimes the vacuum gets so tight, it's got a sort of a little key here. And the great thing about this is you can do infused liquors in it. I'm sure nobody in this audience cares about that. You can marinate in it. You can obviously force in dry rubs, again, by expanding the meat to get it to go in. So we're going to take a little bit of olive oil. We got a nice hot grill going over here. Now, lamb of any sort can really be served medium rare, medium. That adds the most flavor to it. Even though the lamb chop has a lot of flavor in it by itself, so you can see, and what I'll do is I'll put one of these over to the side and sort of pull the meat back or the marinade back so you can see how much color. But you know how when meat marinates, here I'll spread a little bit, turns gray. Look how gray that is from that time that was in there. And what's happened is the acid from the yogurt has penetrated in there because we separated the meat fiber, we tumbled it in, and we're getting it going on here now. And hopefully you guys will start smelling it out there. Can you guys smell it start coming out there yet? Yeah. I really wish we could serve this stuff to you, but unfortunately, state laws, blah, 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 read the fine print kind of thing. So we get these going on here, and they don't really take any time. And the great part about it is we have what's called the Jason theory. You ready for the Jason theory? If it has a bone in it, had a bone in it, or you think it should have had a bone in it, eat it with your fingers. So that sort of gives you an out for everything. People say, well, God created the hand before the fork. Agree with that. But in case somebody doesn't want to go and they think about evolution versus creation, you still have an out clause about has a bone, had a bone, think it should have had a bone, eat it with your fingers. So all we're trying to do on this is get a good chart. Now, a lot of people, too, ask a question about grilling. What are some secret tips to grilling? Well, let me get this thing cut here. Obviously, we can get it through, so getting a few of these on. So some of the secrets to grilling are, on my side of this grill, you can't see it from your side, but on my side, there's these little things down here called knobs. You don't have to crank them up all the way all the time, okay? You go about that medium-high heat. The great thing about it is it gives you some extra time to react in case, you know, there's a flare-up, in case something happens, in case you've got to, you know, go run and have a beer quick or do whatever it is you need to do. This way it stops you from giving you a little reaction time. The other thing, too, is there's an old saying, the lower the temperature, the higher the yield. So by cutting down the amount of heat we're applying to it, and so we have the camera right here, I want you to look at that. Does the TV show it very well? It's hard to see with the pixelation of it, but the cilantro is really blended in very well, and the smell is just amazing. I may break some California laws here, but who wants to come over here and smell this? This stuff is just here. Just somebody can validate what I'm talking about. You can look at the color in there and smell how all the flavors and stuff come out in there. And just by looking at that turmeric really comes out in it. But you really see how the look of it alone, and again, that was just put in the blender, a bunch of ingredients.
Oh my God.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see just how this comes out. And this again, oh, I'm sorry. If I come over on you, I'm going to apologize now. You're welcome. So you see the difference? Uh-oh, somebody's really going to challenge me now. You smell that? So that's pretty, oh, I'm sorry. That's pretty neat, isn't it? Oh, did you get one more? Here we go. So we can see we got to go in. And the thing, too, is this marinade, since it doesn't have the oil in it, that's another reason not to use oil, is because, one, we don't need to these days, but two, it stops flare-ups from having all this extra oil. But look at the color that's getting on here. That yogurt is just caramelizing that Maillard reaction. If you're here for the last demo, what happens is when you get this brown color on meat, it's called a Maillard reaction. It's when you're taking a protein sort of turning into a sugar by this cooking process. So look how pretty that looks. Isn't that amazing? Now you can see how that turmeric really brings out the color. And the wind's hopefully blowing that way. You guys can smell this. I really wish that you guys could get a taste on this stuff. But see how pretty that is? Look at that color on that chop. And again, in the spirit of, you know, family and all that stuff, and having a great meal, we're going to do this family style. I think is the best, most appropriate way to serve this. We're going to take our nice couscous salad. We're going to put right here on one end of this nice big platter. And you want to talk about a pretty summer dish. And again, you live here in an amazing state that has some of the greatest produce around. You know, actually right now, as we're speaking, I'm vice president of 65 restaurants out of Orlando. So we actually use a company that's based out of California that contracts all our produce for us. So over in the Monterey Peninsula right now is the thing called the Produce Marketing Association is going on. If I don't know, everybody's here in the produce industry. So a lot of people in restaurant chains, grocery stores and stuff are right over in the Monterey Peninsula as we speak right now, taking and looking at different produce, looking at things that the state of California is, so to speak, bringing to the table as far as new products and hybrids and stuff like that. So now we're going to take our zespri kiwi salsa, and we're just going to sort of put it over here on either side of the dish. Now, one thing we always talk about when I'm plating is talk about symmetry. Symmetry is balancing things on the plate. What happens is if you don't balance the plate and you sort of get it off balance, somebody's eye goes in on one thing. If you put symmetry to it, so everybody's eyes just sort of go over the whole thing and just keeps sort of looking at the whole dish versus sort of going off in a different area. And again, this is very simple. It's a great colorful dish that we can do for it. Again, this can be cooked medium rare, these lollipops. And again, repeat after me. If it has a bone in it, had a bone in it, think it should have had a bone in it, eat it with your fingers. So again, look at this beautiful color on these chops. Aren't they amazing? And so all we're going to do with the chops is really just sort of sit here and put them up on the side. So when you got your friends around, you got a great grilled glass of Chardonnay or a sparkling wine or anything like that. Again, these big, bold herbs and flavors and spices go amazing with chilled wines, especially during the summer. Rosés. Rosés, thank God they're not our grandparents' rosés. Rosés have met a renaissance, and they've really come back and have really earned their right at the table now. They've really come back in a way that I think exemplifies great winemaking, especially out of the state of California here. Myself, I'm sort of a Napa/Paso junkie. Lenny Coloto, if anybody loves Lenny Coloto, one of my favorite winemakers. Cherry Red, Sticks and Stones. We've got a friend of mine up in St. Helena, California. He's the only licensed distiller in St. Helena. It's called the Still on the Hill. Charbet vodkas, tequila. Does some amazing stuff. Matter of fact, if you're going to be in Lake Tahoe, second week of September, I'm going to be at Lake Tahoe Food and Wine up there. Love to have you come by and see what we're doing up there. It's a great event. But hopefully you guys are smelling what's going on. Does anybody have any questions as we're sort of coming towards the end of this demo about Australian products, Australian lamb? Again, the Australian lamb is produced at a much younger rate, so it's much sweeter. You don't get that really strong flavor in the lamb, which makes it much more palatable. Some people, I think, get a little bit off just by that stronger flavor. So what we're going to do now is sort of back some of our ribs into it, so we have them sort of going in two different directions. What's that? Great question. So you can buy Australian lamb right now. Costco definitely carries the Australian lamb. And I forgot who are the other two, but Costco is definitely one of them. So there we go. So we have it plated up here. And if you wanted to, you can actually serve a little bit more yogurt on the side for some creaminess, or you would sour cream. You really don't need any more garnish on it. So here you go, if you want to take a look. Here's our couscous salad with tandoor grilled lamb chops and a zespri kiwi salsa. Does anybody have any questions? Right here in the front. Okay, great question. If we're not going to use lamb, what kind of meat use? Really, any firm meat. Chicken, pork, and lamb are probably the best. Chicken thighs love this because chicken thighs have a ton of flavor. They have enough fat, and they're unctuous enough to really go through this process with the yogurt, because yogurt's really strong. It sometimes can actually dry the breast out a little bit because the breast doesn't have as much fat in it as the thigh does. So any of the pork, beef does okay, but it's probably not one of the better ones because it's a little bit creamier. I would say those three. You can do scallops with it, and shrimp. Again, just want to sear it really quick though. Don't over grill it with it. The only thing you have to do with seafood is you don't want to go about 4 hours. Because of the acid in here, you'll almost wind up making ceviche. You'll chemically cook it. The acid will actually denature the protein in the seafood, and if you go 24 hours, you'll wind up with ceviche instead of. You don't even have to throw it on the grill anymore. So, any more questions? Where? I hear. It's in the cookbook. So where the cookbook is around. Does anybody have the cookbooks?
Yeah, we have the cookbooks here, free for you.
Yeah, the cookbooks we have
it's
some
not
Australian
in the cookbook?
and the one here for Gilroy as well. This is called the tandoor lamb recipe that's in the back of it. The couscous I just did on the side just to show the plate, but I'll tell you what, we can do it, and I'm sure the Garlic Festival can put it on the website or something for you. All right? All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And it's actually called this one is called Marivac. It's by Eastman Outdoors, but you want to look for it's called a home vacuum marinator. Okay, it's a vacuum marinator, tumble marinates. If you Google home vacuum marinator, make sure you get one that tumbles, but they're out there. Any other questions? Another one over here. Yeah, 135, 140. You get well done, you start drying it out. Lamb and pork, see, a lot of people live under a misnomer. We actually, one of the things we judged today was a pork slider and cooked it about medium rare, medium. Pork can actually be cooked medium rare, medium today. People are still living on the old days where the feed that the pork got was, had a lot of things in it, where the feed that the animals get today has to be double pasteurized and everything else. So pork today can actually be cooked medium rare. It doesn't have to be cook it till the white flag raises up anymore and dry it out. So you have some leeway with that and having to cook it well done. Oh, no problem. Any other questions? Hey, you guys, thank you for coming tomorrow.
Give a round of applause for Jason Gronlund. I have a question for you.
Sure.
He is the executive chef at the Bones.
Smoky Bones, yeah.
Smoky Bones. Do you have some of the stuff on your menu?
Actually, we're getting ready to. I'm getting ready. Actually, I'm leaving for Australia the 1st of August for 10 days as a group of delegate chefs from the U.S. to go learn some more about their production and come back and be able to speak to folks about lamb and beef. And then in January at my restaurants, and we're along the Eastern Seaboard, we're going to run a limited time offer. So I'm actually going to chronicle my trip over there in sort of vignettes on Facebook and social media, and then we're going to ramp it up into January, do a thing on Australian grilling.
Hey, Jason, where is the Smoky Bones?
Smoky Bones go from Boca Raton, Florida, all the way up to Nashville, New Hampshire, as far over as Fort Wayne, Indiana. We have about 65 stores, got 6 more opening next year. So.
Real quick.
Yeah. Actually, gentlemen, I am going to be here tomorrow. I'm going to be here defending my title as the cook-off champion. We won the last 2 years. Had a friend of mine, Chef Jay Minzer, who won the last 2 years, who passed away this year. So we'll hopefully be here cooking in his honor. So make sure it starts at high noon tomorrow. 4 great teams competing for this. So if you have time to come down and see it, it's an awesome event. It's a true mystery box. We see the ingredient 10 minutes before. We get the secret ingredient